Hello and welcome to this video about moving from face-to-face teaching and learning to online teaching and learning. We will focus on digital pedagogies and some tips and tricks that I've learned over the years. My name is Sean Nicholas and I'm an educator and researcher in the areas of digital pedagogy and innovative online teaching and learning. I work with the Drive team at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU. Let's get started with some basics. When we think about teaching and learning online, we need to think about pedagogy first. Then we can choose the right tools to support us. But we shouldn't try to replicate face-to-face teaching and learning online. This doesn't work. What we need to do is we need to think about our learning goals or our objectives and what we want to try to achieve online. The LMS is just another tool to support you. It's not the solution. A learning management system contains a range of tools that we can access, but we have to remember that not just one tool will suit everything that we're trying to do. We need to start with small steps. We need to keep it simple, we need to keep it meaningful, and we need to make it as effective as possible. We want to try to avoid substituting what we do face-to-face in the online environment. When we're starting out, we really need to just focus on what small steps we can make. So we might, in the first few days, reduce the tasks that we would do normally in a face-to-face situation and build up to more tasks as we progress. So keep it simple, keep it meaningful, and keep it effective. Place yourself in the shoes of a student. Understand what it's like to be a student online. What would you expect? What experiences would you want? What communication would you want online? How would you want to work? Do you know if all the technology works? Have you thought about anxiety? Have you thought about students who like that social connection and speaking face-to-face? The online experience, as I said earlier, is not the same as face-to-face. However, it doesn't mean it can't be a high-quality learning experience for students. In fact, a lot of research has shown that academics who move to online learning are much more reflective in their face-to-face practices after they move online, and they think better about pedagogical practices and the choices they make in both environments. It can be hard moving online, and not just for academics, but also for students. The students need to learn how to learn in new ways, and we need to be understanding and reflective of that. Many of us, academics inclusive, come with deeply entrenched ideas about what teaching and learning is. And we need to challenge these existing prior experiences that we have about teaching and learning and look at new ways of moving forward. We need to have an open mind, we need to be flexible, and we need to accept that some approaches will not always work. Not all students are the same and not all classes are the same. So what you do with one class might not work with the next class. What works with first-year students might not work with second-year students or postgraduate students. We need to understand that coaching is really quite important. And we can't assume that people know what we're talking about all the time. At NTNU, we have access to Blackboard. This is our starting point, and all our communication should occur within Blackboard. This is what I would call the jump-off platform. This is where we need to think about allowing students to know that this is a spot where they will find all their information. Try not to have a million different sites. One spot is a jump-off site. If you have another LMS, then work in the same way. It could be Canvas, it could be Moodle, it could be something else. But these notes refer mainly to NTNU where we have Blackboard. So this is our jump off point. And as I said earlier, it doesn't mean that Blackboard is the only place we are going to work. Blackboard is not going to teach students. You are going to teach students. So we have to ensure that this is a starting point and we make all our links from there. All our communication should originate from here. And we can't just keep sending message after message after message to students. Imagine yourself as an academic receiving hundreds and hundreds of emails per day. How do you deal with this? It's the same for students. Have a clear message, maybe a message at the beginning of the day or the prior evening to starting classes, or maybe just a message at the end that is a summary about what has happened online or where students should be. Students need to be clear about the progress that they need to make each day or each week. And this is why extremely clear and detailed instructions are essential. You need to keep expectations realistic in this environment. And as I said earlier, start with just one or two tools or one or two tasks and build up to more tasks. Working online is different. Some students may feel isolated, some students may feel like they're not connecting with the rest of the group. And you as an academic need to make efforts to connect and engage with your students in new ways. Don't go overboard with too much communication, but still keep students really informed. As I said, think about how many messages go out. One message, two messages a day, but not 4 or 5 messages or 6 messages. It's too much. and no one's going to read them. I've brought up the issue of workload here, and workload is really, really important. We need to ensure that we look at our well-being and the well-being of students. Online learning requires new strategies and new approaches. So therefore, we need to look at how we deal with this. We need to work in ways that are smart. We need to try to reduce the amount of workload we have. For example, if you have a discussion forum, think about how many posts you'll receive online if you ask students to respond to a particular question and give their opinion. First of all, you'd have to try to engage them in the forum. That can be another task and something else we'll discuss in the webinar. Let's say you receive 100 posts a day in a discussion forum. How do we deal with each of those posts? Do we respond to each of them? Or do we put the emphasis back on students supporting each other? Or do we change the task so that we're not having so many posts? And maybe we have groups of students working together and then posting a response so that we have half as many or less messages. We need to think about the role that students play in responding here and how we work with that. How can you change the approach you would use if you were working with discussion forums? I use the discussion forums here as an example because even with MOOCs and other forms of learning online, a lot of people choose a discussion forum as the go-to place. Discussion forums can be complicated and they can't be always the easiest approach. Often workload is an issue when we look at discussion forums and responding to them and ensuring that the right things are occurring within the discussion forum. We still need to be mindful of things such as bullying or what other people are saying. So someone's got to be monitoring this or moderating this. So discussion forums are not one of my favorite tools. Yes, I do use them. I try to use as many discussion forums as I can where I think they have a necessity. So often I'll use a discussion forum as a questions and answers place so that people can come and see what the most common questions and answers are. So if I receive an email or a message from a student, I might put that up there into the discussion forum and answer it so other people can look at it first. I know in Blackboard, the discussion forum is very archaic and it's not one of the easiest tools to use. So I suggest in the beginning, steering away from the discussion forum as a place where you want students to comment on particular topics. Perhaps if you need to use it, start it as a Q&A or questions and answers area. Please be creative in your approaches to online teaching and learning. Think about the goals and what you want to achieve. This is where I start. But when it comes to online learning, please don't forget about here in Europe, the GDPR, or in general, privacy and copyright. Going online is no different to teaching face-to-face when we think about GDPR, privacy and copyright. We need to adhere to this. And some of the things I talk about here may not be suited to using within a European context where we have the GDPR. And these are some of the decisions that you will need to make. Let's initially talk about asynchronous collaboration. I think this is probably the easiest place for most as a start, and it perhaps places less strain on an overstrained system, especially at these times where most students are needing to go online. We need to think about simple tools that will support your learning goals. Don't look for complex tools, keep it simple, keep it with just several tasks and go at a slower pace to start with, and then build up from that. I know I've mentioned this several times and I'm going to keep mentioning this as we go throughout this video, because I believe that if we throw people into the deep end, then we all sink quicker and quicker and there's less support for everyone. Asynchronous collaboration gives flexibility. It allows students to come online when they can. At this time when students are needing to think about work and think about other aspects in their lives, flexibility is needed. So let's use these tools so that students can work offline, individually or in assigned groups. We'll talk more about assigning groups in the webinar, but for now, think about how we can look at these options. It's easier to design for inclusion where participants may have limited access or need more flexible schedules and can't be online at the same time. This is a real advantage of asynchronous collaboration. We can use this approach for many things, and there's many different ways to do this. I mentioned discussion forums already, and this is one tool that we can use. However, before we get to looking at the tools, I think it's important that we look at why we're using this approach. So this approach is great for assigning learning tasks. Think about the approaches such as creative inquiry, problem-based learning, or even authentic reflective tasks. I've just mentioned a couple of pedagogical approaches here, and I'm sure you have a whole range of approaches that you already use face-to-face that you can adapt and look at using online. Let's look at collaborative group tasks using shared online documents. And there's many shared online documents out there that you can use. Within NTNU, we have Office 365, which allows students to share documents between each other and complete shared tasks. There are many other shared documents, and students might decide on using something between themselves and then sharing it back to a particular place within Blackboard or your learning management system so that it can be commented on by other students. So think about collaborative group tasks. Think about video and audio feedback. If you're needing to give feedback, sometimes it might be easier to click on a document and give audio feedback, or if you have the bandwidth, video feedback. Let's look at students supporting students. Some students can support students, and this is something I would really encourage. As we go online, we need to support each other. It needs to become a community of learners. It needs to become a community where everyone is supporting each other in the learning process. Students being authors of their own learning is really quite important, and it's another way that we can engage students more, and I'll talk about this a little bit more shortly. Asynchronous collaboration also means that you have a presence online, and showing students that you have a presence online is really important. We need to build trust, and this is one way we can do that. We can build trust through the activities that we're doing. And another way we build the trust is by letting students know that we're in this together and that we're learning together in new ways. If the students have not been using online learning and you haven't been using online learning, then we need to have this presence and we need to build the trust. There are a ton of tools out there that we can use. And again, I say keep in mind what's allowed within your institution or how you're using these. When you're using these in an anonymous way and details aren't shared, you may be able to have students work or choose their own tools. And I've seen students before choose tools such as Trello or Padlet. I've seen them share video and podcasts and quizzes. I've seen them create blogs and wikis and use tools such as Slack and even Facebook. I've seen Snapchat being used in classes. But again, remember which tools you need for the collaboration and how you want to work in this environment. Remember the GDPR, remember the privacy, remember the copyright. This is really quite important. So the starting point here, asynchronous collaboration. Keep it simple, keep your goals small at the beginning and grow from there. The next form of collaboration, which I want to talk about, is synchronous collaboration. And this is perhaps the type of collaboration that places the most strain on the system, especially as more and more people go online. We have to think about people going online at the same time, using the same tools, and the strain that places on the system. Tools such as Blackboard Collaborate, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Skype are great for real-time communication. It does mean that students need to be all online at the same time, but it's a way that we can see each other face to face and collaborate immediately. However, one big point I want to point out here is don't try to use these tools to conduct a lecture. If you're conducting a lecture, and that's something I haven't done for many years teaching in a university because I don't believe in lectures, the students are going to switch off. They're going to become bored. They're going to hope someone's recorded it. They're going to listen to it or maybe listen to it at twice the speed later on. So let's not use these tools for creating or conducting a lecture. Let's use these tools for tasks such as clarifying learning tasks, real-time group work via breakout rooms. Most of these tools have breakout rooms. Demonstrating a concept that might be difficult for students, and I'll come to an example of this shortly. Addressing questions and answers that students might have. And again, the other benefit of synchronous collaboration is still building that presence online and letting students know that you are there for them. Drop-in sessions for students having difficulties or wanting to ask questions is also another really nice way of using some of these collaborative tools. In my subjects that I teach, I use Zoom quite a lot, and I have Zoom meetings set up for each of my subjects and allocate times where students can drop in and they'll know that I am in that Zoom session and that they can ask these questions. Choosing the right tool for the task at hand is always something I've told most of my students, especially when I'm teaching education students. We need to choose the right tools to be good educators. In this case here, I've chosen a tool, and that tool is Zoom. I'm using it on my iPad, and you can see here an example playing the background where I'm working with a student trying to help them understand Pythagoras' theorem and work out a solution. This works really well, and obviously you can see that I've also recorded this session using my iPad, and you can see that red symbol in the top corner. So when it comes to using tools such as this for mathematics or science or other areas where you've got to demonstrate something, An iPad is great, works well with Zoom. I can flip the camera around so it's not on me, and I can also zoom in on things using the camera and show different photos and video. These tools are brilliant. I use them even in face-to-face teaching. So often in face-to-face teaching, I'll AirPlay my iPad to screens around the room or to a particular computer within the room or the projector. So again, choose the right tools for the task at hand. Think about what you want to do. What is it that you want to do? Is this the right approach? And I'm going to come again back to the notion of simplicity. You need to use the tools that you have. Smartphones and tablets, especially an iPad Pro with a pencil, I find is brilliant for working with students, and I just couldn't work in the same way without it these days. So think about what tools you want. Keep it simple. Video and audio, grab your smartphone. It doesn't matter whether it's Android or iOS or some other operating system. All of them allow you to record video. If you don't have a tripod, think of a way where you can stack it on a bookshelf and point it towards yourself. There are millions of ways of doing it. And if you've got something worth saying, the audio quality and the video quality will be good enough. You don't need to have professional video and audio recording for a quick, simple demonstration or talk about a complex issue. You don't have to have lengthy, detailed videos. I know the video here is really getting quite lengthy as well, and it's something I try to avoid where I can. I'm not a big fan of lengthy videos. However, at this point, I wanted to get people started and help them think about different things to consider when they're going online. Get to the point quickly, and then set some tasks for your students. It's similar to how I'd work in a classroom, and it comes down to thinking about good pedagogical practices. Get rid of your lecture, throw that out the window, and come back to some practical tasks that involve some really creative thinking and some inquiry. Get the students engaged. Think about how you can engage the students and what tasks that they can undertake. Think about how you can build trust and bring the students on the journey with you. Think about peer feedback. But if you're going to do peer feedback, give the students some clear guidelines and criteria about what this feedback is. Don't just say, can you comment on this work? Give them some criteria. Let them know, how does it relate to the course objectives? Come back to your learning goals. Give them something to think about, and this will only improve their learning. Check for understanding and continually check for understanding, but don't do the same quiz every day. Can you imagine the students turning up to every class and doing the same thing? It's like academics. They find Padlet or they find a wiki or they find a blog tool, and then all of a sudden, every single class they go to has a Trello card or a blog or a wiki or something like that. Think about simple tasks that students can do. Get them to create their own selfie video about their learning that they've undertaken in the last session. And that can be part of their own reflective journal, and it will help them understand, and it will give them an opportunity to come back to it at the end of the day. I do this with face-to-face teaching, as well as getting students to do it in an online environment for themselves. I don't need to listen to their selfie video, so it takes the pressure off them, but it helps them clarify what they've just been learning. Variation is good. Try new things, but don't go overboard, and start simple. Just do one or two things to start with, then build it up from there. Students are busy, like we are busy, and they don't have the time to learn 100 new tools because all of a sudden we've decided to go online. Think about formative assessment. There are many tools out there that we can use. So try to choose a tool, try to look at formative assessment, and take some pressure off yourself and get some peer assessment happening here. This is all really quite useful when it comes to checking understanding and guiding students. Earlier I mentioned something as called students as authors, and this is where the students are creating as opposed to consuming. They are more engaged often with the topic when they are actually creating. So get the students to create video, get the students to create audio or shared presentations. I call it flipping the flipped classroom. Students can collaboratively create video. It doesn't matter where they are. They can be located at one end of Norway or the other end of Norway. They can do this collaboratively. Look at collaborative presentations, look at collaborative podcasts, and look at how you can share this. The students will find tools to work out how to share between each other. You can have one student who can take the lead to put it all together. Each student contributes from their end, and we have a shared presentation. There are many ways of working together. There's many ways to get students to be authors of their own learning. Because we go online, it doesn't mean that we must, as academics, create videos for every single thing we do. It's the same with flipped classrooms, face-to-face. We shouldn't be there creating hundreds and hundreds of videos and getting students to consume all these before they come to class and then doing practical activities. Some students don't have the time, they don't have the flexibility, they have jobs and they have work. So we need to think about how we work in this environment. And we have to be smart, we have to be clever in our thinking. Set tasks for the students to complete as a group or individually. Have students share and comment on each other's work, but ensure that you have criteria and very clear expectations of what they need to do. There are so many different tools out there, and I know in schools we often see students using Seesaw as a tool, seesaw.me for those who don't know it. It's a great little tool. However, if students are commenting on work and uploading work, can you as an academic respond on every single piece of work that is uploaded and every comment that's made? So think smartly about how we're going to work online. How much content can we actually give feedback on without losing too much sleep? Getting close to the end now, and I want to bring up the idea of sharing. I'm just going to preempt this by saying to think about privacy, think about GDPR, and think about copyright and where things are being stored and not stored. We want to encourage a community of learners who share and support with each other. Some systems allow this within the university, some systems don't. We have to look at what's best suited to us, and the university has many tools. Let's use cloud-based storage solutions where we can. There's solutions such as OneDrive and Dropbox for larger files. See what is allowed at your institution, your department. If you're unsure, ask questions, send an email, get some support. Use online productivity tools where students can work together collaboratively on documents. Office 365 and Teams do this, and many universities have access to this. My students often work in Google Docs and then bring it back into another format. Again, remember to think about GDPR. Can you use some of these tools, yes or no? Often Office 365 and Microsoft Teams is covered under the GDPR in the university. If you're unsure, please ask someone. Use video streaming sites for videos that are too large for an LMS. For example, YouTube, Vimeo, Panopto. There are a number of different ways we can stream videos. Our learning management systems don't always like having large amounts of video uploaded to them, and we need to think about other solutions. If you're not familiar with making video, some of the video you might make may have very large files. By using some of these other online tools, the online tools will often decrease the video size, which means that there's less bandwidth needed for students. They can choose to view things in low resolution or a higher resolution. So some of these tools have some really, really great uses to ensure that our video is kept smaller and we're not overloading systems at this time. Again, think about copyright. Think about what you can put on YouTube or Vimeo or Panopto or any of these sites. I often create videos which are very anonymous. They're obviously I'm the author, so they're not anonymous in that way, but they don't include copyright content, and I'm referring students to view something that is publicly available. So in that sense, I often use that if I have video to get across to students. Screencasts and podcasts, absolutely awesome if you want to demonstrate a concept. There's a whole heap of tools out there, Screencast-O-Matic, Camtasia, ScreenFlow, and many others. There's built-in audio recording software on smartphones, on laptops, on other computers. There are tools that you can access. Think about what you want to achieve and why you're doing something. Let's not turn this into something that already exists. Look for work that is already online. If you are trying to demonstrate a principle, maybe there's something that you can refer students to online. Again, I'm going to say, remember GDPR, remember privacy, remember copyright here. And the last final bit of advice I want to talk about when we're going online is feedback. Get feedback and get feedback often. I know feedback also refers to giving feedback to students, but I'm talking about the feedback you receive about your teaching and learning online. So how do you know what you're doing is working? Right up in the beginning of the week that you first go online, get some feedback. If you can't do it in the first week because you're busy, get it in the second week. Don't wait for university surveys or something like that. Let's get some feedback. And I keep it really simple. I keep it to 3 main questions. And I've listed these 3 questions here. Is the current approach to learning in this subject or unit, if you call it a unit, working for you? It's a simple yes or no. Is it working or is it not working? My next question, if you answered no, what can be done to improve the learning experience? So ask the students how you can improve their learning experience for them. Third question, what is the best thing about learning in this subject now that we've gone online? I leave it at 3 questions here. I think those 3 questions are enough to get some really positive feedback from the students about how you can improve the learning experience for them and understand what is working really well. If you need more help, my details are here. Please don't flood me with emails. Look towards the Microsoft Teams site at NTNU that we have for learning and support for learning, and look at the digit courses that we have here. So it's digit.ntnu.no. That's all I've got for now. I'm looking forward to having each and every one of you in the webinar as they come up. Let's take it from there.